With Lenny Eisenberg. If you've been watching the news over the past several weeks, and in fact over the past several months, you're no doubt familiar with Miramonte Elementary School and the events that allegedly transpired there. Blame has been passed in many directions, from the students themselves, encouraging it, to the teachers themselves, cooperating with it, to the administration. In any event, since then, there's been a constant parade of teachers coming up on allegations. We're here to try and address that today, Miramonte specifically. Lenny, what exactly in relationship to what happened at Miramonte would be the relationship between LAUSD and its principals, and how might that have played into what happened there?
Well, in the human body, we have sensory devices in our hands so that if we come near heat, we move away from it. We have a mechanism for defending ourselves. LAUSD has set up a top-down model where no one dares to challenge what the principal is saying, doing, or more importantly in this case, not doing. You move up in the Los Angeles Unified School District by ignoring. I think of, from my childhood, Hogan's Heroes, the famous character of Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing, I see nothing. Most teachers will tell you that if you stand up against a principal, even when the principal is completely wrong, you will be targeted and removed from the school.
How does this relate to the initial individual who was accused of wrongdoing?
Well, Mark Berendt was not just accused of wrongdoing. It seems that he was involved in wrongdoing for many, many years. And you ask yourself, how can this take place?
Yeah, how could that go on for 17 years as it's reported?
Well, the way it goes on is that anybody interested in molesting children will ingratiate themselves with a principal. And within the culture of LAUSD, if you go along with what the principal does, you are not questioned. At my own school, Central High School, we had a teacher, Laura Slater, at my site who used to, in a 4-hour program, take the kids shopping for 2 hours. You had another teacher, Ed Weiss, who would walk the kids across the school into the park and let them play for 2 hours. These were students who were grossly behind in their fundamental skills and could not do high school work. They would have trouble with elementary school work. But because they supported the principal, they were not challenged. I challenged what was going on in the school, and I was attacked, as are any other teachers that question this culture. So what happens is the Miramonte is a predictable result from a system that has no mechanisms designed to warn that things are going wrong. The only mechanism at LAUSD, and most teachers that have been doing it for a while know this statement: principals are gods, you cross them at your own peril.
Now, in respect to that, when these allegations first started being reported, LAUSD, and specifically John Deasy, spoke of this with righteous indignation and took a number of steps, including moving the entire staff of Miramonte to demonstrate that LAUSD would take drastic action to correct all this. Was this just a show?
Well, it was not only a show, it was a sleight of hand to deflect blame and culpability from the administration that was responsible for it onto teachers. Why are you moving teachers away from a site when any teacher will tell you in a top-down model where the principal has all the power? Teachers had no say as to what was going on at that school. The way LAUSD runs is not a democracy. There is no two-way accountability. It is a top-down model. If you want to fix this model, what you have to have is two-way accountability. In the American Indian tradition, you were a chief of a tribe for as long as you had the support of that tribe. If you didn't have the support of your tribe, you were no longer chief. This is the same way we need to change the culture of LAUSD. You need to have parents and teachers determining who they want to be the leader of the school, what they want that leadership to do, and to the extent that that leadership is accomplishing goals, i.e. students are coming out well-formed and well educated, the person remains as the administrator. To the extent that kids are being socially promoted and not achieving, that administrator is removed and you get somebody in the position to do it. But you don't deflect criticism against the long-standing failure of administration by blaming teachers for what administration is responsible for.
So so unlike, for instance, a Roman dictatorship, where once the dictator was done serving his time, he was responsible for all his acts, these people that you're describing act with impunity.
Under Government Code Section 821.6 in California, the language of the code section says that an administrator can go after a teacher without probable cause and with malice, and it is not actionable under California law. They are completely and utterly immune, and this breeds contempt. You, as teachers will tell you, if they go to an administrator and they say, look, I have a problem with this student, they will give you busy work. They will tell you to call home. They will tell you to have a conference with the parent. They will tell you to put the child under contract. But when push comes to shove, nothing will be done. It is not just the students of LAUSD that are predominantly Latino and Black, and a significant percent live in poverty, but any child anywhere, when they get no consequences for negative behavior, when the cat is away, the mice will play.
Now you bring up an even more sensitive issue. Is racism part of this? And if it is, how does it play into it?
Well, the way racism plays into it, and you have to realize that we are 58 years beyond Brown versus Board of Education, where the Supreme Court said that separate but equal is inherently unequal. So what do we have in 2012? We have an inherently separate and more segregated, although de facto instead of de jure or legal separation, we have a segregated school system that is more segregated today than it was before. But more profoundly more important than this, whether the teachers or administrators are white, Black, Latino, Asian, there is no expectation in LAUSD that Latino and Black students can learn at the same level as white and Asians. And this is a canard. This is something that needs to be challenged. But it's not challenged in a school system where the purpose of that school system is to replicate the existing social structure and those who are in power. You give me any school in this system, come back in 3 years, I'll show you improvement.
Now you
Come back in 10 years, and I'll show you the highest scoring school in LAUSD. And it doesn't matter what the ethnicity of the students are.
Now you just made a reference to any school. Let's go back to Miramonte. Would Miramonte have occurred at Westchester or Malibu or Pacific Palisades?
Well, this is just another aspect of racism. We discount the value of Black and Latino children. On the west side of Los Angeles, there is a sense of entitlement. When, teachers will bear me out on this, that when you have parents show up, if you can get minority parents to show up at back to school night, the main question that they're asking in a school environment, from what they remember from their experience, is my child obeying? If you go to an affluent Tony community like the Palisades or Malibu, the parent's concern is my child learning? Now, what has happened since Miramonte is that the slander of all teachers by the situation at Miramonte, and long before this with budget cuts, is that instead of having the administrator operate as a buffer to protect the teacher so that the teacher can often do the difficult task of holding kids accountable to a higher level and saying, no, you've got to do this, you've got to perform at this level. On the west, in the poorer areas, in East Los Angeles and South Central, the teacher gets labeled as a racist if the teacher holds a high standard. If you do it on the west side, the parents are concerned with getting their kids into a good college, and if the student is not performing, the teacher will be intimidated by the parents by saying that the student did well, and a lot of teachers, and we're starting to see this, back off and raise the grade. Now, where did the chickens come home to roost? I remember when my daughter was going to Berkeley, and she was saying to me, this is one of the finest schools in the United States, and she was saying the level of lots of the students at Berkeley is not what it should be in terms of writing. If you go to LACC, 60% of the students getting to LACC are at remedial level. Why? Because we're intimidating the teachers. We are using administration to intimidate teachers and to support instead of protecting and buffering. Are there bad teachers? Absolutely. But the greatest irony is those teachers are pretty much insulated against being held accountable for being bad teachers because they're in with the principal and they go with the program and they challenge nothing.
So if a teacher does stand up for standards and does stand up for quality instruction and does have expectations which are closer to what would be appropriately expected, in lieu of support from administration, they can expect
to be attacked, to be targeted, to be removed, to be charged, especially in a post-Miramonte, with having threatened a student, used racial language against a student. If you tell a student the simple fact that if they get out of school without a basic education and unable to fill out a job application, that they will be unemployable, you will be told that you are racist, you are anti-Latino, you are anti-black, when what you are doing, because you care for your students, is you don't want your students to hit the freight train of walking into a job and not getting through the door because they can't fill out a coherent job application. I've talked to the people at Home Depot who tell me they get kids coming in there that show up late, that smoke a joint, that disrespect customers. Where did they learn this behavior? They learned it at LAUSD, where it was tolerated because the main concern was collecting average daily attendance. LAUSD is concerned with making money, with spending money with its vendors, with building schools, but not with the education of its students. If we allow this situation to continue in this country, the very existence of the United States as a democracy is threatened, because you cannot have a democracy without a highly educated citizenry. And it stands to reason. Where do we vest power in a democracy? You look at our Constitution, it's in our citizens. If our citizens are dummies, we will not have a democracy long. We need to change LAUSD, and we need to change it now. If you have a story about what was done to you at LAUSD and what you know is going on, you can sit and say nothing and think that you're going to survive. You will not. I strongly suggest you contact me, Lenny, at perdaily.com. If you are being targeted for removal and you need legal defense, contact me at lenny@perdaily.com, and I'll see what I can do to getting you hooked up. Thank you.